Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the February 5th Helm Developer Call. My name is Robert. I'm going to be your host. This is a CNCF project. It is governed under the CNCF rules of Code of Conduct. It is being recorded. If you do not want to be recorded, please fall off and watch the recording later. Being that it is a CNCF project, please mind your P's and Q's, be respectful, and love everybody. That being said, let's get started. Do we have any announcements?
Yes.
Scott?
There is a patch release coming up, and I believe we will um, have to do that Monday. Matthias, I remember we looked at the dates that are required, and not that I want to push it to the last minute for you, but I believe that the 14th is your latest. But I'm hoping that, I mean, Monday's a few days before then. I hope that that will still be fine. Okay, great.
Definitely Monday is great.
Okay, great.
Okay,
So
awesome.
that's the only announcement is that we're currently planning the patch release ahead of the 4.1.1 patch release ahead of schedule for that.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Scott. All right, we'll move right
Cool,
into
thank you.
discussions. Joe, a PR wishes to add a new template function. Any charts that uses these in Helm 4.0 or greater would break 4.0. Could this be implemented using the new plugin tool? I will link the I will link it in our chat here. The PR. Joe, the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, so I was reviewing this, thinking about some of the things that Brandon said in the past, where you do this or for equal numbers.
Joe, with all due respect, sir, we can barely hear you. So if we can fix your mic, so none of us can hear you, sir. And while he's fixing his microphone, I actually put a link to the PR he's referring to. It is 31746. It is in the chat.
Well, I'm not sure what else I can do. So just talk louder, but I know it's still really low. Sorry.
I can hear you actually, but yeah, if you can just kind of like try to talk pretty loud, um, or worst case, you could chat in the chat box.
Yeah. Anyway, I was trying to review this PR, and I noticed that. Well, I was thinking about things that Matt Friedman said in the past, which is basically if you add this function into Helm 4, it's at any point, yeah, currently or later, that any older Helm 4 releases will no longer work with that chart. So it seems to me like this would be a breaking change, um, and should be merged. But it got me wondering, we've got the plugin structure now. Could this be created as a plugin?
We did discuss that at some point. Didn't come up with any uh um uh one it would be dependent on the chart defined plugins hip that we're working on presently and coming closer to a resolution for the tool for the projects that are long running that have to be concerned about memory usage and the projects that are very, very locked down, like non-writable file systems that use the Helm SDK, for example, Flux and other SDK users that work on those kinds of environments, and we're very close to finding a solution there. So that is one thing. That idea would be blocked on that. But secondly, um, we have added template functions in the past within the same chart version without it being backwards incompatible. The 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 chart authors would just have to add some sort of a check for Helm version. And I thought there was a hip actually for adding Helm version to charts v3. I was looking for it, but I didn't find it yet. Either way, there is a workaround, and it was discussed in a recent Helm meeting. Um, I wrote up a pattern that folks can use in the meantime. Um, so any of those will work, and that allows it to be uh, the chart can be non-backwards compatible with earlier Helm versions, um, as long as the chart author um, defines that.
Yeah, it's not really
a breaking change because it's only a breaking change if the chart author opts into using the functionality. But to Scott's point, we certainly add template functions frequently, and yes, older versions of Helm aren't able to use those new charts. But this is more of a forward compatibility concern than a backwards compatibility.
Yeah, I just linked the pattern. It's very simple, just for feature ref.
And yeah, the other thing I was going to say, yeah, for a chart to require a piece of functionality which is supported by a plugin, we think we need to say charts can describe which plugins are needed. It's not a very good story where you have a plugin and the plugin supports the functionality of a chart, but then it's up to the user to go configure their home installation to support those charts.
Here's the hip. George, you wrote it. Here it is.
Awesome, thanks.
And yeah, in the chart define plugins hip, I guess I should link to that too, just for completeness. That what George you just said is already part of that hip. Is already defined in that hip, and here's that. That's if the person who wants to add these functions wants to pursue that direction. That would be a little bit of a slightly longer wait.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Awesome.
One question that has been that I had asked earlier about, in general, adding template functions. Should we have them in the Helm project or should we have them in the Swig project?
Right, Matt answered that before.
I probably missed that.
Sprig is open to adding
Sprig,
more.
sorry.
Yeah, Sprig is open to adding more template functions. And Matt is one of the maintainers of that, or Farina, I mean. So he mentioned that before. It would just mean that to be included in Helm, we'd have to wait for an upcoming Helm version that imported the updated version of Sprig that would have those new template functions.
I would say probably the better pattern is to add them to Helm. And when we've had problems, like one of the problems we're currently looking at is we added a two toml function, but we didn't add a must two toml, and everything else is like to YAML or must to YAML or to JSON, must to JSON. So this toml function is kind of a weird child of it's different. But to fix it now, we have to go change the way the two toml function works to not return an error, which is annoying. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is it would probably be better to get things into Helm, and once they're solid, then we can port them over to Sprig and delete them from Helm. Short version.
All right. So have them in Helm, and then if need be, they can be ported to Sprig.
Seems like the more convenient and more pragmatic path, at least.
Okay, because there are a few PRs.
Doesn't have to be done this way, of course, but
there are a few PRs that are pending because where do they go? All right, cool.
Hey, George, just to be clear, I thought you mentioned 2YAML in there. Was that all table stuff that you were talking about?
There was just an example for one of the functions that we have in Helm, which could potentially be in Sprig.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So any more discussions or should we move on to HIP reviews? Going once, twice. All right. Well, Scott, we are going over to you. If time, questions about the independent behavior of subcharts or help ignore related to the open question of this HIP. Link to the HIP is in chat. Scott, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, awesome. I was just filling in the last of those. Okay, notes. Okay, yeah, so the main question is really just a discussion question. This tip is already approved by multiple people for merging, and we certainly can merge it. The question that George raised, and I just wanted to bring it up here, is should we ask a larger question for charts v3, which is the concept, not con yeah, is the pattern of an ignore file something we want to keep for charts v3, since charts v3 is a place where we can change things like this, or do we want to change the way files are um, uh, limited and included by switching to an include pattern? I did a bit of research on this. I mean, I guess a lot of you probably know there's different different existing patterns out there, like um, how Node and Rust handle things like that with like both an include and an exclude, sometimes in separate files, sometimes in the same file. Um, that's the include pattern, really. They have different pros and cons. But the one thing I wanted to mention is that you can still have an include pattern with the git ignore syntax file like we want for Helm ignore, which is what this hip is really just bringing it to parity, because we have like mostly git ignore syntax. Now it just doesn't quite work for charts v2 by having Helm create and other ways that we could like promote this pattern, use just like the git ignore pattern where you exclude everything and then just include the files and patterns that you want. Both of those ways are doing an include thing, but I think George's question, and George, you can like correct me if I'm wrong or speak to this if you want, but should we just use a different methodology for doing that, like just simply an include file, or like an array where like Node where you have include, exclude, or something like that. Am I getting that right, George?
Yeah, basically. So the story, as I understand it, is when Helm was created, when you did Helm package or to package up a chart, then it would just tar the whole directory up. And then people were like, well, I don't want to tar the whole directory up because I've got a .git folder. So we added we had the Helm ignore concept, so you could exclude files. So the question is, do we want to continue doing that, or for charts v3, or do we want to say if you want to include files into your chart, just put in your manifest the files to include as a more explicit allow mechanism rather than rather than the opposite of excluding things you don't want. Why not just include things you do want? Which we can still use the git ignore syntax for. It's just it would be more of an opt-in, as Scott says, rather than an opt-out.
My thoughts on that are, if there is no compelling reason of changing the opt-in, opt-out, we just improve what we've been doing with Helm 3, which is somewhat git ignore-ish, but then not full spec.
Well, the compelling reason that for me is that if you use Helm create, you get a somewhat sensible .git ignore file. But if you don't, then by default, Helm just packages everything, and that's quite a surprising behavior to most users, because you're like, well, I'm packaging up a chart, and I didn't realize my .git folder with all my Git history is now in this publicly distributable chart.
Yeah.
So my guess, to summarize, my compelling argument is, I think it's a surprising behavior of Helm that it'll grab everything in the package, in the chart directory for packaging.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, it's the same thing with Git, right? I mean, you grab whatever else you find there and it goes upstream. I guess it's thinking of what are the risks, and unless there's something that would be in the chart and end up in a cluster that would, is there like an attack vector that we are talking about, that something got packaged and all of a sudden there's disaster strike?
I mean, Git history is generally not what you expect to be published. Like,
Right.
generally it's not credentials, but if you do have, say, a .in file or values files with secrets and they get packaged as well, like, then this can be also more of a more serious thing.
Yeah.
I do hear the analogy to Git. I guess it depends how you look at it, where like Git is trying to represent a file system, so it's a very natural thing that Git's going to, Git add is going to add everything in the file system. That said, Git add does exist. We don't have a Helm add. So you do mostly have to opt in to adding things. I mean, you can type git add star, of course, but there's still an opt-in process for Git to track files.
Yeah.
And then the Git ignore is a convenience to ensure you don't add things which, in a more is it well, yeah, Git ignore is effectively a convenience.
Yeah.
I don't have a suitable knowledge of other package managers to understand exactly what they do.
Yeah, I just linked to like my research on this, and like it's really just looking at NPM Rust and Python for examples of like an include list targeting. But what you all are talking about is specifically this. Um, can this work now? Oh yeah. All right. Thanks, Slack. Um, for this would be like for example, git ignore if you wanted to. Oops. Ignore everything, right? I just sent in Slack. And that's inside this doc as well. That's like this is basically what you would use to do the pattern that George is talking about inside, like using that hip as is, which is just bringing Helm ignore to parity with git ignore's file targeting syntax. That's how you would exclude everything, like recursively star star, and then just use the like uh the nullifier um to include just the things you want or just the patterns you want. Um, the reason I advocate for this generally is because this is what Helm already does. It's just users are confused that it mostly works like git ignore the targeting, but it doesn't quite. And that's really what that hip is about. I do think that if we wanted to look at other include lists like you're just talking about, like that doc has some examples, and we could maybe have a longer discussion about that. Or we could have a longer discussion about that anytime. So I'm open to it personally. I just wouldn't want to block getting into getting some improvement into charts v3. That's all.
So what I'm saying, we should do either or. We should decide whether. So I guess to the point of discussion, if people want to think about this in more detail, and then we can decide what to do.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So
wonder,
for
would it be
chat,
helpful to write like an alternative hip for include list syntax and kind of use some of this research?
Proposal for charts v3 file inclusion, I guess would be the short version. Okay.
Okay, cool.
would
That's
that
good.
be
Sorry.
would that be a new feature for chat for? Oh no, we're talking about chat v3, not Helm 3. Okay, cool. Ignore my comment.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. As we move on, do we have any shout outs? Okay. Social media amplifications. All right. Well, let's go for moderators for assignments for next week. We have moderator.
I won't be able to make it next week.
I will be here. So Scott, it's either you or me. You put it. Who you want?
Well, let's see. I don't know. Evans, will you be able to be here next week, or you're not sure? or
No,
Joe?
I'll be here. Just checking my calendar quickly. Yes, I'll be here.
Okay. I mean, I'm not trying to volunteer anyone, but if you would like to, or if Joe would like to too, I know Ingy has in the past as well. Anybody want to take it?
I have not yet moderated.
Oh, you haven't? I thought you did one week.
I've done other things, but not.
All right. I don't care, so I don't have a dog in this fight. So Inge, if you want to, we'll have Scott put your name in.
I can take notes. I haven't
All right.
moderated.
Thank you, Evans. Issue Chia's PR reviews. I'm gonna put my happy butt for PR reviews because I make
I
Matt
think
and I do
Robert
it.
just volunteered me, but
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
sorry.
did you confirm that or?
I'll give it a whirl, and if I can't, then I'm just gonna switch it to Evans. So, and hopefully somebody's there to pass the control baton.
I will be here.
You'll be there.
So, yep.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
All right, you can help me.
All right.
Great.
I'll start the notes in the doc for next week if anybody wants to put agenda items or whatever there between now and then. All
right. Anyone have anything else, or do we actually give the community back a few minutes of time? Sounds like we're giving people back some time. Thank you very much. We do appreciate all of you, and we will see you guys next week.
Thanks, Robert.
Okay.
Thanks all.
Bye.
It's the best.